This is a CBS News special report. I'm Norah O'Donnell in Washington, and we have breaking news from the Supreme Court in an important case for former President Donald Trump. He claims presidential immunity protects him from federal criminal charges related to the January 6th assault on the Capitol. Let's bring in Chief Legal Correspondent Jan Crawford, who covers the High Court for us. All right, Jan, what is the court saying?
The court is saying that they are going to decide that issue, whether President Trump is immune from criminal prosecution, which obviously would mean can he be tried for his actions around January 6th. Now, President Trump lost in the Court of Appeals on this issue. The Court of Appeals, in a unanimous ruling with Republican and Democratic appointees, said that he does not have that kind of sweeping absolute immunity from prosecution. So he went right to the Supreme Court and asked the court to put a hold on this case. Now, today, the court is saying the case will remain on hold, but they're also granting a request by the special counsel, Jack Smith, to consider the merits of this case. They're going to decide this case, and they're going to decide it relatively quickly. They're setting arguments for the week of April 22nd. And why is that date important? That means the court is likely to have a decision in this case on whether Trump can be prosecuted for the actions around January 6th. They will have a decision by the end of June, which means there would still be time. If the Justice Department decides to proceed, there would still be time for a trial before the election.
That is a key point. We're actually looking at the remarks from the Supreme Court there about this particular case. Jan, explain how this sets the stage for a landmark ruling on presidential power.
Another landmark ruling on presidential power. This would be the third case the court is taking up this term that will affect Donald Trump in some way or another. This one, obviously, remember, they still have the Colorado case. Can he be disqualified from the ballots by any state that said he was an insurrectionist? We're waiting on that decision. This case will determine whether or not he can be prosecuted by special counsel Jack Smith, whether or not under core principles of separation of powers and executive power, whether or not he can be prosecuted or if he's absolutely immune for his acts as president. Those are issues the Supreme Court has never considered because no president has ever been criminally prosecuted for crimes they may have committed while in office. But I think the Supreme Court really had no choice but to take this up. Under Supreme Court rules, when they're trying to decide whether they're going to grant a case, one of the rules is if it's a hugely important issue of constitutional law and it's never been decided, the court needs to grant cert to decide it. I don't think this means the court's necessarily going to reverse the lower court. I think that would be surprising, but they believe that they have an obligation to decide this important issue of law, and they're going to do it relatively quickly. Not as fast as Jack Smith wanted. He wanted arguments in March, so they're saying toward the end of April, but still enough time to have a decision this term.
Just fascinating what we're looking at. I want to bring in Jessica Levinson. She's a CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor. I know your work focuses on constitutional law and the Supreme Court. So, Jessica, let's say the court hears this in April, as they have said, and they decide that President Trump is not immune. What happens then?
Exactly what Jan says. Then this trial can continue. Exactly as she said, this is the type of case that I'm going to teach. In fact, I just made room for it in my syllabus. And that's because this is the type of case that the Supreme Court does look at. It's a big constitutional question. It's a matter of first impression because we've never been here before. We've never had a president who was criminally charged. And they're asking a fairly straightforward question. Does a president enjoy absolute immunity from criminal prosecution based on official acts? I expect that they will uphold what the D.C. Circuit said. That was a detailed 57-page opinion. They really went through all of the former president's arguments, specifically the argument that trying him would violate the separation of powers, and the argument that you would first have to be impeached by the House and then convicted in the Senate. They explained why, in their view, those arguments hold no water, why there's no constitutional basis. I expect that the Supreme Court will come to the same conclusion, but exactly as Jan says, this is the type of case that screams out for Supreme Court resolution.
It's an excellent point, Jessica. Just to button that up, Jan, but does that mean there will be a trial in an election year of Donald Trump, who looks like he will be the Republican nominee?
I think that's going to be up to the Justice Department. I mean, I think the court could have an opinion by the end of June, early July, then that would pave the way for the trial judge here to set another trial date. But remember, the Republican National Convention is in the middle of July. And so I think that's a question for the Justice Department. Are they really going to try who appears to be the Republican nominee that close to the election when they waited 30 months to file charges in this case?
Let's bring in Robert Costa, our chief election correspondent. And Robert, just the stakes of this amidst the Republican convention in the middle of the summer before this extremely important presidential election, this rematch largely probably between Trump and Biden.
Nora, former President Donald Trump's legal storms are quickly evolving into a legal hurricane that's also a political one. While it is to be determined, as Jan said, whether Trump will face a federal trial on the January 6th case or the classified records case later this year before the election, it's already certain that he will face a criminal trial starting in New York and Lower Manhattan, starting on March 25th. And that will go into April. It's about a 6-week trial. So while the Supreme Court hears questions about presidential immunity in April and maybe into May, Trump's already going to be forced by law to be sitting in a courtroom facing scrutiny over those hush money payments made to a porn star, Stormy Daniels, in 2016. And you add to this all the Republican uncertainty out there about having a potential nominee who's sitting in federal court, city court, state court, maybe down in Georgia, ahead of an election that's already in a very divided country and closely contested.
I know you're going to be talking more about this on the CBS Evening News. We almost need a chart for all of these trials that are happening. Let's bring in congressional correspondent Scott McFarland on Capitol Hill. And Scott, you have followed the January 6th defendants and the prosecutions of them probably closer than anybody. If you follow your Twitter feed, you've been clear on this. What do you make of this particular decision ruling? It's not official, or what the Supreme Court says they're going to do by granting cert.
Time is running short to get a trial back on the calendar, Nora. This trial of Donald Trump for election subversion was supposed to begin Monday. April 22nd was the approximate window for jury deliberations. If the Supreme Court returns this to the district court judge, Tanya Chutkan here in Washington, she has some real estate left on her calendar. We've been monitoring her calendar and her work. There are spaces in May and June, but this trial requires a lot of real estate, likely to go 6 to 8 weeks. It will consume everything in its path. It may be very difficult logistically to get this reimplanted on Judge Chutkan's calendar. I see some detention hearings and sentencing hearings she has this spring. It'll take some movement. And that's if the Supreme Court promptly returns it to her.
And is it likely, if that trial happens, that former President Trump would be in the courtroom every day?
And it absolutely would have to be here in Washington, D.C. every day at the defense table, which, oh, by the way, is going to require quite a security perimeter and footprint, and also would move the 2024 campaign for 6 to 8 weeks to just off Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and the cameras that are always here.
Just extraordinary. I mean, we should actually we could look at not only the time he's going to spend in New York, the potential time that he could spend in D.C. for this particular case, how many weeks of the presidential campaign he would actually be in a courtroom facing multiple different charges that await him. All right. Thank you both. And just to recap, the Supreme Court just agreeing to hear Trump's immunity case on the federal election interference charges. Those oral arguments are scheduled for the week of April 22nd. Our coverage will continue on CBS News Streaming, your local news, and then we're going to have a full recap again tonight on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News special report. I'm Nora O'Donnell in Washington.